Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and I have the beautiful Kaya Stojkov here. Hello, Kaya. Welcome.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's been a hot minute since we've seen each other's faces, so this is a really fun little episode, Walnut. But Kaya, I will get you to introduce yourself to the Walnuts who potentially haven't met you before or don't know you, to get the ball rolling here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lara. Hello, Walnuts. So my name is Kaya. As you said, I'm a nutritionist. I help people to learn a sustainable, evidence-based approach to eating and exercise. And I'm really, really passionate about it. I'm really passionate about teaching people to look after themselves, take care of their bodies, basically so they can just be confident, happy, healthy, exciting walnuts and immune to all the bullshit that's out there with respect to health and fitness and nutrition and all of that sort of stuff.
I love that. And I think how you present yourself, particularly online, Kaya, is like a testament to what you've just described about yourself. Like it feels really, really real whenever you're posting things. Like it's really, I like resonate with it, even though I don't know a thing about nutrition. Something like, so tell us, please, lovely, how nutrition, how did you fall into this? Like what happened?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for saying such kind words. It really is my intention to just spread the good vibes out there. I really am a very kind of like idealistic person, and with like all of the people that I interact with online or work with, I just have your best interest at heart. And so I'm so glad that is landing. But I had a bit of a roundabout way, as we often do, to getting to where I am today. So I actually used to be an economist. I used to work for like the Reserve Bank of Australia and Treasury, and totally unrelated to nutrition kind of stuff. But when I was in my 20s, I got glandular fever and I got really, really sick. And basically my brain just totally stopped functioning. Previously, I probably had quite a lot of my identity tied up in that kind of more academic-y, analytical-y sort of space. And I guess when you get sick with glandular fever, I mean, I know every teenager and their dog has had it, but I happened to have it really, really bad, and I couldn't work for almost a year. I couldn't even watch TV commercials and be able to concentrate properly.
Oh,
Like loading the dishwasher just took it out of me. And so I think that challenged my identity, I guess, as an academic person quite a lot.
yeah.
And also in addition to that, I put on a lot of weight, like a lot of weight. But because I was so out of it, for lack of a better term, when I finally got better, it didn't feel like this gradual thing, like it's very normal, like our weight goes up, our weight goes down, that's totally fine. But I just felt like I just woke up in somebody else's body.
Wow.
And it really kind of messed with my head quite a lot as well. So that really like kind of led me to a bit of introspection, because I would also say maybe not so nice things to myself, like, oh God, girl, you didn't have cancer or anything. Like, why is this affecting you so much?
Hmm.
And that took a lot of work getting through. And I was listening to, I guess, some podcasts, and I came across a woman who was talking about like journaling to kind of work through, if you, you can't always afford to go to a therapist, or maybe that's just not something that's accessible to you at a time, just like working with your own thoughts and journaling and things like that in order to get to the bottom of why things like your relationship with food, etc., might be bothering you. And honestly, I started doing it, and I straight up felt like it changed my life. I started to understand some of these things that I've articulated just now. It took me a really long time to get there. And so then I thought, gosh, I need what this woman has. I need to work with her. She was a nutrition coach and a personal trainer. And so I signed up with her. And from there, it was just about seeing in her community as well the power and the confidence that just comes from honestly doing the little things that you said you were going to do, and
Yeah.
having people to hype you up there, support you. And so I thought, gosh, really, people are nice to other people. People are kind and compassionate and change the world when they are healthy themselves.
Mm.
So I thought I wanted to go in a bit that direction. For a moment, I was deciding, do I want to go down nutrition? Do I want to go down the fitness route? And ultimately, I chose nutrition just because everyone has to eat every day to live.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the most important things is that if you're going to make any kind of change, that it's enjoyable for you and that it's easy for you. And obviously, not all of these changes are immediately easy, but changing something you already do every day is just that little bit easier than stepping into a gym or some new kind of scary thing that you've never done before, like exercise. And so that's how I ended up in nutrition. And then
Wow.
I studied and I retrained. And then I left my big girl job for this wonderful world of teaching people how to love themselves and eat a bit better.
Oh my God, I want to come back to leaving the big girl job as well because that's a big part of like my kind of thing as well. So I want to talk about that, but wow, okay, I love this story and thank you so much for sharing that with us. And is it because it's true that it's like in terms of like dieting or losing weight, I know that you're gonna crucify me for saying that because that's not
Oh.
what I like mean, but you know, it's they say it's what 70% what you eat or ingesting or whatever and only 30% exercise or something like that. So you don't need to like train like a crazy cardio maniac 7 days a week. It's actually about your food a lot of the time. Something like that.
And I really hope that you don't train like a crazy cardio bunny 7 days a week. I
Absolutely
think
not.
that's a huge myth. And look, a lot of people do, but a lot of people have like the bodies in spite of what they do, not because of what they do. And I think
Mm.
that's a really important thing to keep in mind. If you want to get like very technical about it, your energy expenditure throughout the day, only 5% of that is actually from the active exercise that you do, like going to the gym. And then, you know, there is another 20% that sort of comes from, you know, you like doing the dishes, walking the dog, that kind of like, I guess you could call it exercise, but it's not really intentional
A
exercise.
workout. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It is oftentimes a lot less than what people think. But even more than that, you know, mathematical kind of calories in, calories out type of approach. The reason why I think looking after your nutrition is so important is because you get lots of practice at it, and practice is kind of what gives you confidence and what makes you better, and you get tons of goes at eating every day. So I just think that it's a really effective way to teach people to love their bodies, respect their bodies, look after their health, and just be happy little walnuts making the world better.
Yeah, I love that too. And I love you know, like I always feel better if I've eaten a more nourishing meal than something that I've had to quickly rush and just grab, like from the supermarket or a takeaway or whatever. Like I always feel better when I've gone to the effort of cooking myself something or really thinking about what's going into my food. And I did a for my Reiki training, I had to do a cleanse. I think it was I want to say for like 21 days or something. But I it was basically you had to eat vegan food minus salt as well. So I wasn't allowed air bunny quotes to eat very much. But what I learned from that was the how much I enjoy eating different textures and stuff. You know, like after I finished there, I was like I didn't like having like a pasta bake or something. I like to have to add something into it, like some seeds or something that changed the way it felt to actually eat it and enjoy my
Whole
food
eating
more.
experience. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, you've said so many things, so many strings I want to pull on there, but I think it's really interesting. You said like it was for 21 days, and you know, while obviously we don't want to always be restricting ourselves and saying
Oh
not
no.
allowed, not allowed. I know you're not. You're really a very good advocate for having a bit of what makes your soul happy as well. But it is that duration, I think, that's really important. Like it doesn't change overnight, but I think if you eat vegetables, if you eat seeds, all those good things, you actually do start to crave them. You know, you start to get a bit more confidence experimenting in the kitchen, different things you're going to make, different toppings you're going to add. And then over time, you really do start to crave those things if it does sort of, I guess, come from a place of love. And I know that sounds very woo-woo, but nobody ever hated themselves healthy. Maybe they hated themselves thin, but nobody's ever hated themselves healthy or happy. And I guess I really am just passionate about expanding that definition of body positivity where, you know, it's not about necessarily always staying the same or staying just as you are, because it's really in our human nature to want to grow and get better, but that you are a team with your body, you know, you treat your body with respect. And I think that's like a really good way to start saying, oh, what does my body crave, and giving it a go, just even if you're not entirely sure, just kind of trusting that process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the thing that you need is to sit down with a bag of Oreos.
Yeah.
Actually, Oreos don't come in bags. Oreos come in packets. I know, because I had one. I had a whole like over the past few days, but
I love it. But yeah, you're right. I love that. Yes, I am a big person of being present with what you need and listening to your body. Actually, going off birth control is one of the catalysts to me actually feeling really in tune with how I feel. I wouldn't call myself like an intuitive eater or anything like that, but going off of that really made how helped me to listen to what my body was asking, because I didn't actually realize that I did that. I kind of just autopiloted through life. And the start of my walnut journey, that's where, you know, I've always sort of said, I didn't really wake up one day, but I just noticed that I hated myself. I didn't like myself. And so I've been doing all of these little steps, you know, that contributed to who I am today and the walnut woman that I am now. Where was I going with my little tangent? I can't remember, but no, it's completely left.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So I'm always very interested in those kinds of catalysts for people when they start to be a little bit more present in their bodies, because I think noticing is honestly one of the most fundamental skills when it comes to implementing healthy and happy habits. But so you said you went off birth control, but did you notice your body felt different, or how did you start to notice?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I have talked about it before. Walnut, if I haven't, let me know. But I had I went for a smear. I have talked about this before because I said Walnut, get a smear. It's free in New Zealand. I got a smear and it came back abnormal and la di da di da da. I had to actually go and get a biopsy to have a piece of my cervix removed and checked. And that was so freaky. And I remember the doctor had said something sort of like, if we go ahead with this, I was quite young. The doctor said, if we go ahead with this, one of the risks is miscarriage. And I hadn't been thinking about having kids or anything like that, wasn't in my current future or anything like that. But I remember feeling like, oh shit, I'm in this situation where maybe I will want that later on, and I have to make this weird like decision and weigh up the risks and all of that kind of thing. And I know miscarriages do just happen, but yeah, I was sort of on the spot, had to say yes or no, and it was really weird. Um, so from that experience, after I got that done and all clear later on and blah 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 blah, I just kind of felt like, oh, I still feel like something's not right. So I actually went and got like an ultrasound or something like that. And the lady said, because I had been feeling the pull to like just be natural with my body, and that opened up topics of like different ways of contraception and all of this kind of stuff, and patriarchy and all the things. Like, you know, he can, you know, do some of the contraceptive stuff now. Like I've been taking this pill for God knows how long. And anyway, my ultrasound, she was doing like the scanny thingy, and she was like, those are your ovaries. And I was like, oh my God, they're so cute. And she was like, yeah, they're about half the size of what they normally should be. And
Oh,
I was like, what? And she was like, that's from like all of the hormones and shit going in through your blood from being on the pill for so long. And I was like,
I didn't know
wait,
that. I didn't know
I
that
know.
it physically shrunk your ovaries. That's
Yeah. she's like, they're meant to be like double the size. And I was like, what? So that was kind of like my, okay, I've got this like all this crap circulating through my whole entire bloodstream all day, every day for how many years since I was like a young little tot, not a little tot, but and it so much so that it shrunk my ovaries. Fuck no. So that's where it kind of like came from. And I mean, I don't know what my ovaries look like now, but I certainly like and feel more in tune, and I like got to know my menstrual cycle so much so that it was like on the clock, like I just I feel more in tune and connected with myself. There's no extra additional weird things floating around in me that kind of almost like put a little veil over your view of
Yeah.
kind of connected me from myself, I think, without me knowing it. And there's not much education when you're that young to
Yeah, they just give it to you. I do not know anything about all the ways in which the pill can change you. When I first got given the pill, like I think it's interesting what you sort of said is like you don't really think about your health, you don't really think about these things, and still something happens to make you think about them. And I
yeah.
guess my hope is just that hopefully people can learn from, chats like this or different experiences that other people have had, so they don't have to necessarily go through them, or they don't have to be hit in the face with,
Mm.
decision like I guess you were, because, also it really resonated with me when you spoke of that veil, and I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but I certainly found that when I stopped taking the pill, it was like a veil was lifted from me psychologically, because I felt like it sort of almost changed my personality a little bit. And I
Mm.
felt like after a few months, I was a lot more back to what I'm really like. It's very difficult to explain, but I feel like the hormones really do change you on so much more than that level of whether you're going to have a baby or not.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I literally have chills right now because it was such a shift. I honestly went through so many strange emotions. Like I started getting actual, PMS, like Dragon Lady, psycho. Well, it's not psycho, but like short nerved or whatever you call it. There was like a little period of time where I like turned into like a 15-year-old and was just so like felt like having sex all the time. Like that I went through it all and I was like, Jesus Christ, all of this has been like float, like all of
We're
this
all
has
just
been
bags of chemicals.
suppressed.
We're all just
Yeah.
bags of chemicals.
It just like I was just so flatline, like
Mm.
it was just like and then all of a sudden like that stuff was kind of getting taken out and it just had the opportunity to be what it was. And I love talking about feeling your feelings and
Mm.
emotions as they come up and everything. And I think, yeah, without having all those things in your bloodstream, it really does make a difference. So I love that you spoke to that. Thank you. So tell me a little bit more about your body positivity sort of journey. Like, did you have a little self-conscious era, and then where are you at now with how you're feeling towards yourself?
Um, I perhaps, we all live in our own little echo chambers, but I don't think I have met any or very few young people in general, but especially women that haven't had a bit of an era where there were a few sweet bubbles with the relationship with yourself and relationship with your body.
Yeah.
So I've certainly gone through that 100%. When I guess my exercise of choice when I was a child was dance for a long time. And while that is incredibly liberating in a lot of ways because you get to move your body freely, I do think that there is a lot of misinformation out there with respect to how to look after your body and, essentially staying thin. So
Mm.
certainly I'd never been exposed to any other kind of exercise or resistance training or anything like that. And yeah, I did have, periods of quite marked insecurity, especially after I had glandular fever, because like I said before, you're just sleeping all the time, right? So I felt like I went
Mm.
to sleep in September and I woke up in June the next year and I was a lot bigger. And so I think that was something that I really struggled with. But for me, going through that journey, it sounds cheesy and everyone who's a coach says it, but it's just having other people around you who are supportive. That was the hugest difference for me. Other people who are supportive and people who are actually evidence-based, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So certainly my coach helped me a lot with that, and being surrounded by the other girls that were being coached by her. And she would always talk, and I would never forget that she always said, there's two different kinds of goals. There's ascending goals and there's compensating goals. And not all goals are good. So if your goal is because you want to compensate for something where you don't feel like you're enough, yeah, you might achieve that goal, but it doesn't actually address the underlying root of the problem. Like, you can lose the weight or gain the weight, because some people obviously have trouble gaining weight as well. But if you're still doing that because you think you're not good enough, one, you won't be able to maintain it, but two, when you get there, you'll never feel like it's enough. And that's where people go from, I guess, what we could call disordered eating patterns to, full-blown eating disorders. But then on the other hand, you have ascending goals, and ascending goals are goals where you want better for yourself. And I guess, where you build that confidence because you do what you say you're going to do, where discipline is actually a sign of self-love, not punishment. And I guess just being exposed to her teachings for such a long time really helped me with that a lot. And yeah, like, I lost the weight, I put on the muscle, but that's almost secondary to, I think, everyone says the mental shifts. One last thing I sort of want to add there is, even though you have to, I guess, work on that relationship with your body where you treat it as a team, where you treat it with respect, I will say that when you do things that improve your health, and sometimes they do also change your appearance, you do start to like the appearance aspect of it as well. And you might sort of think that, it's because I've lost the weight or whatever, but it's like, no, it's because I know I'm doing good things for myself. I know that I enjoy it when I move. I know that I enjoy it when I can lift something really, really heavy, or, do some kind of mobility or something like that. So I do think that changing, going back to losing the weight and all of that did help me feel better about myself, but not just because I lost the weight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I'm resonating with this in a different way to yourself, where when I started to gain weight, and I am now quote unquote the biggest I've ever been, and I've been saying this for years now, so instead of saying the biggest I've ever been, I'm just me. But
I like that.
yeah, I got to this point where sort of my training style kind of changed, and I started to get into weight training a lot more, and realizing, like, my arms were still big. They weren't like skinny twig arms that all of us millennials are like completely traumatized by from the 2000s. But my arms were still big, but I knew I wasn't like, ooh, because they're strong, like, yeah. I know what I can lift. I know that I'm progressing in my strength training and stuff like that. So I like how you talked about that, where it's like looking at your body is like, oh yeah, it's like a testament to the work that I've been doing,
And if I could just continue on that just for a small little bit.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when we talk about body positivity, I sort of mentioned this a little bit before, it's not just about like you have to stay the same. You are worthy at every point in your journey, but you're always on a journey. And wanting to look a bit different, if you feel like, for example, if you feel like you have gained or lost weight and it makes you feel like you're in someone else's body, it's totally okay just to want to look like your best self. It's totally okay to want to feel your best in your clothes. I think that's where the body positivity movement often gets misunderstood and often unfairly criticized as, kind of, oh, you're just saying that obesity is healthy. And it's like, well, no, I'm not saying that obesity is healthy, but I'm saying there's very many things that you can do as a regular size and as an overweight person that are very, very healthy, that have nothing to do with gaining or losing weight. Yeah. There's so many positive things you can do.
I love that. Thank you so much. And it's reminding me of this post that you shared the other day about talking to family members, and you're talking about bad habits and family members, and you wouldn't tell them to do something, so why would you, or something like that. I'd love your advice on, like, I've got Well, I'm sure we all do. We know people where it's kind of like it's just something you can't, well, you can't or shouldn't really comment on because of social
You love
norms
them.
and
You care
politeness.
about them. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I mean, even the dog, it's like, oh, give her a treat because she likes it. But actually, no, she's got arthritis and she's overweight and she will die. So let's not give her the treat. Like, how do you have these conversations with people that you love where that they're kind of difficult and borderline offensive, but it's from a loving place? Like, where would we as walnuts even begin to have a conversation like that with someone?
Yeah, gosh. Would you believe that that is probably the most common question that I get? Is like
Really?
we start having conversations. Yeah, well, obviously, there's questions like, am I allowed to eat bread? If you're saying bread won't kill me, like obviously I have those conversations as well. But in terms of like um more generally, every time, like if I've been working with someone for a while, they'll always ask like, okay, now how do I influence my family? Because, I care about them so much and I see them doing things that are, really negatively impacting their health. And my answer is probably not, I don't know, maybe it's what you expect, but essentially I just I just know that those conversations never go well because it's very uncommon for the person to not know that they have a problem.
Mm.
It's similarly to like if you were to tell someone that they were an alcoholic, like that's something that's very stigmatized in society. And so obviously the gut reaction is something negative because their inner being doesn't want to be judged. And so what I found is the most effective, other than intervention with like and I don't mean intervention like that
Yeah.
MTV show, but I mean like other than working with somebody who's like a professional or a coach, is really just to be the role model. And I know that that sounds like that's not going to work or that's not going to work fast enough. I need to intervene now. And it's like, well, no, it's not that that person doesn't know that they have prediabetes. It's not that that person doesn't know that they have high cholesterol or high blood pressure or whatever. But if you start doing the things and it's really slow, if you start doing the things and they see it working on you, 100% of the time they start asking you how you did it. They start asking you for little tips and tricks. And yes, I'll say it again, like it is really slow, but it's really slow on yourself as well. Like your journey is really slow. Nothing
Mm.
good happens quickly. And so over time, they'll start asking you, and over time, maybe they won't do everything that you would like them to do, but they will they will improve. And similarly to sort of that post that I think you were referring to in the other day, don't worry so much about other people. I know you stress about your family and your friends who aren't looking after themselves, but just try not to be that person, because it's a very slippery slope. It's very easy to be like, oh, I don't need to do this. It doesn't matter if I don't eat any vegetables. And then I think what I said in that post, but it's really common with old people. Next thing you know, you're not drinking water because you don't want to get up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, so focus on yourself and be a good role model and um, just trust me on that one because it really, really does make a bigger impact than you think.
Oh my God. Kaya, I love the answer to that question. It was like everything I could have hoped for and more, and just coming back to that, like self accountability, self leadership. And once you have that, like, onus within yourself, and even like creating that evidence for yourself that you can do stuff, like building up that kind of bank, um, it does radiate off of you, and people are like, how did you do it? Or asking you the question. So that was like the best answer ever. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank
sharing.
you. But it also radiates into other parts of your life as well. Like, I mean, how you look, and at the end of the day, even like, whether you went to the gym or your nutrition or whatever, week to week, it's not the most important thing. But when you start to build that evidence that you just mentioned, that you can do shit, you start to feel like you can do shit at work, and you start to
Yeah.
feel like you can do shit in hard conversations, and you start to feel like just a more confident person, and you're better able to be kind to others, and you're better able to put energy into whatever it is that your passion is in your life. So it's like, yeah, it starts with like, whether you ate some strawberries, but really if you do it enough, you build that evidence and it just changes your whole life, in my opinion.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you talked a little bit about back to your coaching and stuff. I want to get into a little bit of that, but you mentioned evidence-based approaches
Mm.
to things. What do you mean? What does that mean?
I'm
Evidence-based
so glad you
nutrition.
asked for this because I was like, oh, is this a bit boring? Nobody's going to want to talk about this, but I just think
Oh,
it's so important. This is another area that I'm really, really passionate about is like this evidence-based nutrition. And what that really means is basically, as a practitioner, the advice that you give clients and the decisions that you make about like what their next steps are or whether they need to go see someone else or whatever is really guided by what current, up-to-date, high-quality research says, combined with your experience as a practitioner. So it doesn't mean that you only look at the research or you only look at, kind of, I guess this is where people get turned off mainstream medicine, right? Because sometimes it can be quite dogmatic and it can be dismissive of people's individual experiences. But evidence-based nutrition is more than that. It's that you're informed by the research, but then you're also sort of informed by your own clinical practice. And really, it's just about stepping back and trying to be guided by what's objective and analyzing that in a bit more of a systematic way. Essentially being informed by, what high quality research says, but also being informed by your clinical expertise as a practitioner. You're sort of taking a systematic approach where you're trying to exclude what your biases might be, or also being critical about the research that you do see, because sometimes research says X, but research isn't actually relevant in this particular scenario for this particular reason. And I guess that's sort of why I might just put a little plug here, but that's why my coaching business is called Science and Art Nutrition, because there's the science that underpins everything, but really coaching people and helping them to make lifestyle changes, like an art form that has to be suited to each individual person. The tricky thing, I think, is that we're constantly bombarded with nutrition and fitness information, and it's actually very hard for the average person to be able to figure out what is evidence-based and what isn't, because people will rattle on about studies all the time, and sometimes it's hard to tell if they are actually taking an evidence-based approach.
Mm-hmm. And you talk a little bit about like the you want to help people to be immune to the nutrition bullshit kind of stuff. Where do we start? What do we do? What do we do if we're in a position where it's like I can't actually afford a session with a nutritionist or something? Where should we what do you look at when you're scrolling social media about nutrition? What do you kind of like look out for? Like how do we sniff the bullshit?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I'm so excited to get to talk about this. I think fortunately and unfortunately, social media is a bit of an echo chamber. So if you get on the side that's got the people that are evidence-based, I think that's predominantly what you'll see. So if you're predominantly following, if I might just mention some people, I think it would be helpful, but if you're predominantly following people like Martin MacDonald, like Elaine Lorton, like, like the binge nutritionist is also an excellent source of information, then you'll be in that kind of echo chamber of people like them. But also if you're on the other side, it's very difficult to get out of there.
Yeah.
Especially, I think people often turn to podcasts when they're trying to increase their knowledge. And I think that can kind of be quite dangerous in a way, sometimes, because when people are on a podcast, they have this real unusual opportunity where they get to speak completely uninterrupted. And so they can say a series of things that sound like they're logically really coherent. But if they say one thing that is actually a fallacy, you kind of don't pick up on it if you're not an expert, and then you're led to this false conclusion. So if I could give just one example of somebody who's not evidence-based, I won't name the person, but I was listening to a podcast and they were saying how sugar is so bad for you, it's toxic. Digesting sugar is the same as digesting alcohol, which we know is a toxin. The only difference is that in the wine, the bacteria have done the first step of fermentation and everything else is the same. And then he goes on to build his case for why, eating a lollipop will kill you. And it sounds logical, the steps that he takes, but actually the breakdown of alcohol and the breakdown of sugar are not the same at all. There is no alcohol as a byproduct of you digesting sugar in your body. And so it's difficult to pick up on some of those things, but I guess a little list that I like to go through is sort of like anything that says that something has been found to cause cancer in rats or mice. Irrelevant, because we can test that stuff in humans. And another really important thing about, unfortunately, research is that when you're testing something on rats or mice, you want to find out what will happen if you give them a ridiculous dose, right? So you give it to them until something happens. And, if it's something like artificial sweeteners, you will give them the equivalent of 7,000 Cokes in one day. And then you'll be like, aha, look, it caused cancer. But it's just so beyond what is kind of physiologically and clinically meaningful. If something really is true in the literature, you'll see a lot more than just in rodent studies. Another really important thing is people who say that there is one thing that is causing, all of our ailments and everything that's wrong in our modern lifestyles. So somebody who's saying it's sugar or it's fat or it's animal products or whatever they're saying, if there's one thing that's causing everything, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one, if there's one solution, that's also a huge red flag. The solution is cutting out sugar, or the solution is cutting out this, or the solution is adding that, or the solution is this supplement.
Yeah.
I'm a bit skeptical about that as well. Because the reality is most people know what's good for them. Like usually people think that things that aren't bad for them are bad for them. But generally speaking, people know what a healthy lifestyle entails. It's really not that complicated. What they don't know is perhaps how to integrate that into leading like a normal life when they're so busy. But anything that says, there's one cause to the problem or there's one solution to the problem, I would stay away from that.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was talking with a friend a little while ago and she's like, I used to follow this chick and she was so helpful and giving lots of advice on the things and blah 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 and so believable and I got lots out of it and learned lots and then, a little while later she comes out with a supplement and she was like, oh, like it was like she promoted all this like natural food stuff and then it was just like, oh, here's a supplement which is going against all of the things that she started following her for in the first place and things like that. So yeah, it's really, thank you for those examples of knowing what to keep an eye out for. And I know I said, what if we can't afford a nutritionist or something? But what if there's a Walnut listening who is like, I can afford a Kaya and I want to hire her? You've mentioned already your website and things, but where can Walnuts on the internet find you if they want to snoop you and or work with you?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm just _ K Stoy with a J, KSTOJ, which is from Kaya and Stojkov, which is my name. But really the best way probably is to just go to my website, which is www, obviously, sciencexartnutrition.com. And from there, I'm sure you can put it in the show notes or whatever, make it easy for people. But from there, you just book a call. We have a no obligation free chat just about where you're at because, I might not be the right person for you, or you might need something else, or you might just actually not need a nutritionist. You just might need to, be a little bit reassured that you're not going crazy. And I'm sure you're not going crazy, but really, if you do just want to have a no obligation, totally free chat, you can just click on one of the many buttons that lets you do that on the website, and then I will be more than happy to have a chat with you.
So much. And yes, I will link that all in the show notes for us. Walnut, Kaya, I really wanted to talk to you about, quitting the big girl job and starting a new business. And I don't know how much time we're gonna take. I don't want to use too much of your extra time, but like I would love to know like what you went through. Was it scary? All of the things before we wrap up. Like, so now you work for yourself. You've got your own business. You're doing your thing. You're completely like lit up and passionate about what you do and you are enjoying yourself. Can you talk us through that a little bit about leaving the
Imagine if I
the
said, no,
grind?
it's not scary. Can you imagine if I was just like, no, it's easy? Like, that's not to say that I'm not completely grateful. And I'm also very grateful for, like, I have a partner and that allows me to be supported. And, I don't have any kids and things like that, which I think, we don't all have the same 24 hours in a day, 100%.
Mm.
But nevertheless, even with that relatively easy hand, if it's not scary, you're probably not leveling up. I think, how did I do it? I don't even know if that was the question, but basically, yeah, I was working my economist job when I decided to go down this route. And, it was pretty tricky studying and working at the same time because obviously it's important to retrain, even though nutritionist is actually not really a regulated term in Australia, so anyone can call themselves one. But
Wow.
that whole process, and I think the most important thing was just shuffling along. It always felt like it was too slow. I always had like a bit of imposter syndrome and all of that. But just shuffling along, doing my study units just little by little at a time. Eventually that was finished. Eventually it was time to, I guess, start working with people that I knew more closely, sort of that soft launch so they can give you feedback, because, you can learn all the stuff in the books, but people unfortunately are not, well, fortunately actually are not
Yeah.
books. There's definitely a skill to, I guess, communicating things, especially when, and I'll go back to that nutrition bullshit piece, but especially when people come to you with all these stories that they have in their heads about how bread's going to kill them. And I shouldn't speak so flippantly about that, but believe it or not, it's actually not very effective just to tell them, well, that person that you're following is a total fucking idiot. They
Yeah.
don't respond very well to that. So it's just about, kind of like how to build that rapport, how to build that trust. Those are all kind of learning things. And you just got to be aware that, like, if you're making mistakes and you're noticing that, then you're learning. And honestly, I procrastinated a really long time. I didn't do it probably like the optimal way. But it doesn't matter that you do it the optimal way or not. It just matters that you do it in the end. And when I was finally like full on quitting my job last year, everyone was asking me like, "Oh, aren't you scared? Aren't you so worried? Like, how are you gonna make money?" Blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I realized I was like, no, because I've been procrastinating this for 3 years, so I'm very, very ready.
Yeah. Exactly. And what is the optimal way anyway? Do you know what I mean? Like I think using Walnut Wednesday as an example, like I launched a podcast without a following, without a social media presence, without anything. I didn't invite people, I didn't share about it. I just did it because I wanted to do it, essentially. I wanted to practice my voice and things. Um, and then I did the groups, and then I did the book. I did everything the wrong way around to all like the coaching people around me that strategically launched their business and then had the podcast after, but I kind of have just done everything in the way that kind of felt right to me, similarly to you, where it's just like the little pottering along, and
Shuffle,
the
shuffle, shuffle.
procrastination happens, yeah, just the baby steps all of the time, and every little thing is an opportunity for growth and to try something and to learn something about yourself, especially. So yeah, I think it's incredibly brave to just go out on your own, despite what your own personal circumstances are, and all that kind of thing. Like, I'm just so proud of you. Like, good on you. It's just exciting.
I have to say, I have for a long time found you to be an inspiration in that regard. I think that people just kind of buy into who you are as a person, right? And they see that you're so genuine and they see that, um, you just want to bring walnutting to the world. And I think they kind of buy into that. And it doesn't really, it's almost like a myth that there's like a right order to do things. Like, I don't know, maybe there is, but that's not my sort of opinion of it. I've never thought like,
Yeah.
oh, she started a podcast out of nothing. Why? But I think we do have some of that negative self-talk when we talk to ourselves, like, where we sort of start to doubt ourselves or whatever. But I think as long as you just keep going and you surround yourself by people who also take themselves out of their comfort zone, who know about the thing that you're interested in learning about. As long as you just kind of keep going, you can't really get it wrong, I think. I
Mm.
mean, you'll get bits of it wrong, but then you'll hopefully fix it over the years. Like, I'm sure there's things I'm teaching now that 5 years from now I'll be like, wish I didn't say that out
Oh
loud.
yeah, but you
But It
Yeah, you
is.
totally love that version of you and you grow from it and you learn from it and you respect that part of you, like I have so much respect for past me who did a lot of the hard things or the embarrassing things and like there's I'm getting all emotional because yeah, it's just a
But you're
really
so much more
journey.
brave when you're at the beginning. Like if
Yeah.
you did all those things now with all this experience that you have, like I hate to say it, but maybe it wouldn't be as impressive because you're not, you know how to do it already. But when you're exploring something that's so completely new, like you do need to stand in awe of that a little bit and all the things that you've achieved with Walnut Wednesday. And, because you started from not really, you just started with like a vision.
Yeah, just being a little
Oh,
banana.
walnut.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, yeah, I love this discussion. Kaya, I ask all my guests on the podcast a token question, and it's what does being a walnut mean to you?
Yes, I love this question. I love hearing more people's answers for it. And
Me too.
perhaps I just haven't heard the part of the podcast where you explain where the title of the podcast came from. But so I want to ask you about it as well. But when I
Mhm.
think of walnut, I think of when I was little, my grandparents actually had a walnut tree in their garden. And my granddad would climb up on the walnut tree, and it was like, oh my God, 80-year-old man climbing up a tree. This is so dangerous. But anyway,
Yeah.
he'd shake the walnut tree, and all the walnuts would fall down and then clunk clank on the concrete on the ground. And so to me, being a walnut is like, wow, you're small, but you're mighty. You're small, but you're tough. And it's about being brave. And it's okay that you're small because there's lots of other small, tough things, small, tough walnuts around you. And you just all have to be small and tough and brave together, and you can achieve really good things. Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I never think of one walnut by itself. I always think about a bunch of them all clinking together.
Oh my gosh, I love like I'm already crying. See, I love the visual of like your granddad, the tree, and having all the walnuts together. It's just so divine. And I have a group on Facebook called The Walnut Tree, which is like a
Yes.
bunch of walnuts. It's just, oh, that was so lovely. Thank you very, very, very much. What a divine little description. Thank you.
Such a pleasure talking to you, Lara. I just
Oh,
cool.
just absolutely divine. But gosh, is there anything else, Kaya, left on your heart that you feel like you want to share or that you feel like you haven't touched on in this episode?
My heart is very full, Lara. Thank you.
All right, Walnut, thank you very much for your time and for being here. I will link everything in the show notes. And Kaya, thank you so much for all you do in the world and all that you are and how you present yourself and the example that you set for me and all of the Walnuts listening. It's just been an absolute pleasure to have this discussion with you. And yeah, just thank you for all you do.
I'm so proud to be a walnut with you.
All right. Have a happy, happy Walnut Wednesday, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.